When his best friend's daughter tried to throw him out of the home he'd lived in for 40 years, he quietly pulled out a letter. What happened next shocked the entire town and reminded the country that real friendship doesn't go down without a fight. I guess I always believed that loyalty meant something. You know, the kind of loyalty that doesn't get replaced by a new phone, a new car, or a flashy retirement home brochure. The kind that comes with coffee stains, wrinkled photos, and conversations that don't need to start from scratch. For me, that loyalty was named Tom Grayson. Tom and I had been best friends for 52 years. Not Facebook best friends. I mean the kind of friend who sits next to you in the emergency room at 3 a.m. while you try not to cry over kidney stones. The kind who helped bury my wife when cancer tore her out of my life. The kind who never judged when I gained weight, lost my job, or cried like a baby during a baseball game in '96. That kind. So, yeah, imagine my surprise when I showed up at Irene's diner, our Wednesday ritual spot, with a bag of Tom's favorite blueberry muffins, and some stiff in a pressed suit tells me Tom died 3 days ago. No phone call, no message, no heads up from his kids. Hell, I practically raised his daughter when she went full goth vegan in 2002 and refused to eat or talk for 6 months. Instead, I get a handshake from James Langford, estate lawyer, like I just won a damn sweepstakes. And here's the punchline. Apparently, Tom mentioned me in his will. I didn't even know he had a will. I always figured if he died first, I'd be the one organizing his funeral playlist and yelling at the priest for mispronouncing our last names. But no, the family didn't just forget me. They scrubbed me out. Like I was some moldy couch in Tom's attic they finally decided to toss. You'd think the funeral would be a place to mourn, to remember, to tell embarrassing stories and pass around lukewarm egg salad. But when I showed up, wearing the same gray suit Tom once told me made me look slightly less miserable, his daughter Joanna greeted me like I was a door-to-door salesman. "Henry," she said, her mouth tight like she just sucked on a lemon, "we appreciate you coming, but the family has decided to keep the private service." Well, private. I blinked. "Joanna, I've known your father since before you were born. I helped build the damn deck on your house." She gave a tiny, rehearsed shrug. This is what Dad would have wanted. That's when I felt it. That deep, hot knot in my gut. The one that tells you something's very, very off. Because Tom would have wanted me sitting right there, telling that story about how he once fell into a beehive trying to impress a waitress. He'd want me front row, tearing up at the sound of "Take Me Home, Country Roads," pretending not to. Instead, I sat in my car in the church parking lot, gripping the steering wheel like it had insulted my mother. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there, like a fool. The next morning, I went to the diner. Alone. Irene, the waitress who had served us for 20 years, noticed right away. "No, Tom?" she asked, pouring me a cup of lukewarm coffee that tasted like asphalt and disappointment. "He's gone," I said. She blinked. "Gone where?" "Gone, gone." Her face fell. "Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry." We sat in silence. She brought me a slice of pecan pie without asking. That's the thing about old-school places. They remember your grief better than your family does. But as I stared at the booth we always took, the one with the torn leather and the wobbling table leg, something snapped. Tom was gone, and his family had made it crystal clear that I didn't matter anymore. No words, no seat at the table, not even a heads up that his ashes were being scattered in some park I'd never even heard of. They wanted to erase me, like 50 years of friendship was a footnote. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a beige envelope with my name in block letters. Inside, a notice. I had 30 days to vacate the property. Now, here's the real kicker. I lived in that damn house for 43 years. It was technically under Tom's name because, back in the day, my credit score looked like a horror movie. But the agreement was always clear. We split the mortgage, we split the life. It was our house. Two grumpy old men, watching reruns of MASH and yelling at squirrels. That was the deal. Apparently, not anymore. Joanna had decided it was best for the family to sell the property. Best for their family. Not for the man who paid the bills while Tom recovered from surgery. Not for the man who fixed the broken pipe in the basement during a snowstorm when the plumber never showed. I called her. "Joanna, this isn't right." "You'll be compensated," she said. "We're following the legal procedure." "You're not following the right procedure," I snapped. "Your father—" "My father isn't here anymore, Mr. Milton," she cut me off, cold as frostbite. "And frankly, your relationship with him doesn't entitle you to keep a piece of real estate we now legally own. You ever feel like your whole life's been turned into an unwanted guest in its own home?" I stood in the hallway of my house, our house, staring at the photo of me and Tom in front of the fire pit. God, we looked ridiculous. Two idiots in flannel, holding hot dogs like trophies. But we were happy. We were whole. And now, I was a squatter in my own damn memories. That night, I poured myself a glass of cheap whiskey and sat on the porch. The wind was sharp. It carried the smell of pine and betrayal. I lit a cigar I'd been saving since my 70th birthday. Tom had given it to me. "To light on a day you need to remember who the hell you are," he said. I lit it. And that's when I saw the old Chevy pull up. Mark. Goddamn Mark. Our third musketeer. The one who moved to Florida for warmth and women, as he called it, and hadn't been back in over 5 years. He stepped out, slower than I remembered. His gut had expanded, but his eyes were still sharp. "I heard," he said. "I heard what they did." He handed me a folder. Inside was a letter. Tom's letter. Written in January. A letter he never got to send. "I'm worried about what happens if I go first," it read. "Joanna has been sniffing around the house. I want Henry to have it. He's my brother in all but blood." It wasn't notarized. It wasn't legal. But damn it, it was real. And suddenly, everything felt different. That's where things truly began to shift. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss what comes when the tables finally start turning. I didn't sleep that night. You'd think after 72 years, I'd be used to tossing and turning. Knees aching, back stiff, bladder screaming at 3 a.m. But that night was different. That night, I was angry. Not the missed my TV show kind of angry. The kind that makes your blood feel like it's boiling in a cast-iron pan. Tom's letter lay on the table like some kind of ghost. One that refused to go away quietly. He wanted me to keep the house. His own words. And somehow, his family had the audacity to pretend I was just some tenant they could sweep out like old crumbs from under the rug. And let me tell you, it wasn't just about the house. It was about everything. The way they looked at me like I was a charity case. The way they erased me from his funeral. The way Joanna, that self-righteous little real estate princess, called me Mr. Milton. Like I was a stranger. Well, Mr. Milton had a spine. The next morning, I walked into the town clerk's office with Tom's letter folded neatly in my coat pocket, and a coffee I didn't even bother sweetening. I wasn't here to be pleasant. The clerk, a young man named Trevor with a man bun and a voice like a sleepy kitten, looked up from his computer. Can I help you, sir? Yeah, I said, slapping the letter down in front of him. I want to contest a property claim. He blinked like I'd spoken Latin. I, uh, I'm not sure if… Listen, kid, I've lived in that house for over 40 years. I paid for the plumbing. I mowed the damn lawn. I once crawled under the porch in a snowstorm because the pipes burst and your city hotline was on lunch break. So don't give me, I'm not sure, because I am sure. He cleared his throat and picked up the letter. Read it. Blinked some more. Well, it's not notarized. Legally, it doesn't… legally, you're probably still on your mom's Netflix account. I need a real answer. Eventually, I got directed to the town's legal counsel, some woman with a voice like a librarian and the personality of wallpaper. She explained calmly that while the letter was emotionally meaningful, it held no legal weight. No title change, no documentation, just ink on paper. But, she added, like she was offering me a cookie, you can file for adverse possession. Adverse what? It means, essentially, that if you've lived there long enough and treated the property as your own, there's a chance you could claim ownership. And what does that take? About 5 to 7 years in court. Maybe more. I laughed, a dry, wheezing laugh. Lady, I don't even buy green bananas anymore. You think I've got 7 years to wait around? I walked out of there feeling like a man who'd just been mugged with paperwork. I stood in the parking lot, sun beating down, letter crumpled in my fist, and for a second, just 1 second, I almost gave up. Almost. But then I remembered Tom, the man who once drove 6 hours to bail me out of a New Jersey holding cell because I insulted a cop's parking job. The man who punched a vending machine at the hospital because it ate my last dollar. The man who never turned his back, no matter how ugly things got. He fought for me. Now it was my damn turn. I started small. I went to the diner and talked to Irene, then to the neighbors, then to the veterans group Tom and I used to go to on Tuesdays, a bunch of grumpy guys who smelled like menthol and argued about war movies. I told them everything, the eviction, the letter, the silence. Turns out, people listen when a 72-year-old man tells them he's being kicked out of his home by the daughter of his dead best friend. Turns out, some of them had stories of their own, about kids who forgot, grandkids who took and never gave back. Turns out, there's a whole community of people who know what betrayal feels like, and they're done staying quiet about it. One of the veterans, Earl, a guy with a hook for a hand and more opinions than sense, said, "You need to put that story out there, Henry." Online? Online? I asked. Like, on the computer? He nodded. Get yourself a blog, a Facebook page. Hell, make a video. People need to see what they did to you. Now, I'd barely mastered email. But Earl's granddaughter was a tech whiz, and before I knew it, she helped me set up a YouTube channel called Last Friend Standing. Cheesy name? Sure. But it got people's attention. I posted a video. Just me, sitting on my porch, holding Tom's letter, telling the truth. About friendship. About betrayal. About how you can give someone decades of your life and still end up on the curb with a cardboard box full of memories. The video went viral. Not dancing baby viral, but viral enough for folks to start sharing, commenting, offering help. One woman sent me a handmade quilt. A guy from Oregon offered legal advice. A widow in Florida wrote, "I lost my best friend too. Thank you for speaking." Even local news picked it up. Some bright-eyed anchor with way too much makeup knocked on my door one morning, asking if she could tell my story. I told her she could, as long as she didn't make me look like a pitiful old man. "Sir," she said. "You're the most stubborn man I've met all month." "Damn right," I told her, "and I'm just getting started." Then came the phone call. Joanna. Her voice was flat, almost bored. "Henry, I saw the video." "Did you?" I said, sipping coffee. "What did you think of the part where I mentioned how your father begged me to keep the house?" "You're making this more difficult than it has to be." "No, Joanna. You made it difficult the second you tried to erase me like I was some stray dog your dad took in." A pause. Then, "You have a week." After that, the papers go through, and she hung up. I stared at the phone, not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. No guilt, no hesitation. Like she was canceling a dentist appointment, not evicting a man from the only home he had left. And that was when it really hit me. This wasn't about legality. This wasn't even about the house. This was about power. And I wasn't going to roll over and let her win. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, it's happening now. Stay with me. You won't want to miss how I finally started pushing back. I spent the next few days with a fire in my chest and a camera in my face. You see, when an old man starts making noise, people listen. Not because they care, but because it feels safer than ignoring him. I wasn't trending worldwide, but in my corner of Maine, I'd gone from that grumpy old guy in the plaid shirt to Henry Milton, the friend they tried to erase. Reporters came, local bloggers came. Some guy with a drone flew over my house and called it the last stand of friendship. That was a bit dramatic, but whatever gets clicks, I guess. The video I posted hit over 100,000 views. And no, I don't know how many that is in TikToks or Snapchats or whatever your grandkids are wasting their time on. But I know it was enough to get people talking, including the people I least wanted to hear from. It started with a knock on the door. 3 sharp raps. Not friendly, not tentative. It was the kind of knock that says, "We're not here to talk about muffins." I opened it, and there stood 2 people I hadn't seen since the funeral. Joanna and her younger brother, Lucas. She wore a blazer like she was walking into a courtroom. He wore a hoodie that probably cost more than my entire kitchen. "Henry," Joanna said, "we need to talk." I didn't say a word. I just opened the screen door and walked back inside, letting them decide whether they were bold enough to follow. They were. She sat at the edge of the couch like it might bite her. Lucas flopped into the armchair like it was made of pudding. "I'll make this quick," she began. "You need to take down the videos." I laughed. Not the polite kind. The kind that starts in your stomach and comes out like a thunderclap. "Why?" I asked. "Did I get the font wrong? Or was it the part where I quoted your father's words that upset you?" "Because it's affecting us," she snapped. "Our jobs, our reputations. My husband's boss asked about it during a client meeting." "My heart breaks for your LinkedIn profile," I said. Lucas finally spoke up, his voice oozing entitlement. "You're making us look bad." "No," I said, leaning forward. "You made yourselves look bad. I'm just holding up the mirror." Joanna stood. "You have 5 days. If the video's not gone, we'll pursue legal action for defamation, slander, and emotional harm." "Funny," I said, "because what you did was steal a man's home and bury his best friend like a forgotten neighbor." They left. No hugs, no thank yous, just slammed doors and the scent of overpriced perfume lingering like bad memories. That night, I sat on the porch with Mark. He handed me a warm beer and said, "Well, you sure stirred the pot." "Good," I said. "It needed stirring." He nodded. "You know what this reminds me of?" "What?" "That time in '78 when we challenged the town council because they refused to fund the park." Oh, you mean when Tom shouted, "You want our taxes? Then give us our damn swings." We laughed, but it wasn't the joyful kind. It was the kind of laughter that holds grief in its throat. Because Tom would have loved this fight. Not the fame, not the drama, but the principle. He believed in right and wrong. And right now, I was swimming in a sea of wrong with a paddle made of receipts and old photographs. The next day, I called a lawyer. A real one this time, not a clerk who still lived with his parents. Her name was Margot, and she wore boots that could crush an ego. She listened to my story, nodded, took notes, and then leaned back in her chair. "Your case is emotional," she said. "Powerful, but legally, murky." I sighed. That's what they all say. "But," she added, "if we prove tenancy, financial contribution, joint maintenance, and community recognition, we might establish a legal interest, especially with this level of public attention." And Tom's letter? Sentimentally priceless, legally complicated, but it adds weight. Courts don't always work on feelings, but public pressure? That's different. She leaned in. "Henry, if we go forward, it won't be easy, it won't be cheap, and you won't win any popularity contests." "Lady," I said, "at my age, the only contest I'm entering is most stubborn grandparent." We shook hands. She smiled. "I like you. I grow on people, like moss." Within 48 hours, Margot had filed a motion for equitable interest. It sounded fancy. Probably was. All I knew was, I wasn't being tossed out like last week's garbage without a fight. Joanna got the papers. She didn't call this time. Instead, her husband did. Some finance executive with a voice like wet cardboard and a vocabulary built entirely from TED Talks. "Henry, we'd like to settle this amicably." "Sure," I said. "Buy me a burger, give me my house, and admit you were wrong." "That's not exactly what we had in mind." "Then we're done talking." Click. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next week, someone egged my house. Eggs. On a 72-year-old man's porch. What are we, in high school? I cleaned it up. Didn't say a word. Didn't film it. Didn't post it. Because that's what they wanted. A meltdown. Instead, I planted flowers the next morning. Bright ones. With a sign, "Still standing. Still home." 2 days later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside, a copy of my original eviction notice, burned at the edges. No note. Just ashes. Mark was furious. "This is harassment." "Yup," I said, sipping coffee. "And they're getting sloppy." He looked at me. "You're not scared?" "Scared?" I said. "I've survived a war, 2 kidney surgeries, and a marriage that lasted through disco. This question, Mark, this is noise." I kept going. I made more videos. I told stories about Tom, about our childhood, about loyalty, about what it meant to be the last one left when everyone else had moved on. People responded. Letters, emails, old friends I hadn't heard from in decades reaching out to say, "Thank you for saying what we couldn't." Some sent money. I sent it back. Some sent prayers. I kept those. And one woman, Barbara, a retired teacher in Michigan, wrote, "You're not just fighting for a house. You're fighting for every one of us who got forgotten." And maybe I was. Maybe it wasn't just about me anymore. This is it. This is the moment everything explodes. If you've come this far, you owe it to yourself to see what happens when the fight reaches its boiling point. I didn't expect a crowd that day. Hell, I didn't even expect decent weather. But the universe, in one of its rare mood swings, decided to give me both. It was a Thursday morning. I wore my only good flannel, brushed what little hair I had left, and stood on the front porch of a house I was technically being evicted from in 12 hours. 12 hours. After all the noise, all the interviews, all the tears and digital warfare, Joanna's legal team had gotten a fast-track order. My lawyer, Margot, said we still had a shot. There were counterfilings pending, but until a judge said otherwise, I was to vacate. That word again? Vacate. Sounds like a motel room, not a life. So I stood there, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint my porch with gold, and I realized something. This wasn't about saving the house anymore. It was about drawing a line. That was when I saw the first car pull up, then another, then 3 more. By 9 a.m., my lawn looked like a high school reunion for the emotionally exhausted. There were old neighbors, vets in wheelchairs, women with handwritten signs, and one teenager holding a boom mic he clearly didn't know how to use. And right in the center of it all was Irene, bless her, with a tray of homemade muffins and a folding chair that had seen better decades. "I brought blueberry," she said. "For Tom." By 10 a.m., reporters arrived. By 11 o'clock, the sheriff's deputy rolled up, polite, awkward, and looking like he'd rather be doing anything else. And right behind him, Joanna, in a sleek black car with tinted windows, dressed like she was auditioning for a legal drama. Her face was tight, unreadable. Behind her was her lawyer, tall, polished, and oozing fake kindness. "Mr. Milton," he began, like I was a guest at a garden party, "as per the court's temporary ruling, you are required to vacate the premises by—" I raised a hand. "No." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no," I repeated. "I'm not moving. Not today." "Mr. Milton, this is not optional." "Son," I cut him off. "I've fought in actual wars. I've buried friends. I've been married for 38 years to a woman who could make a grown man cry with just one look. If you think this is going to scare me, you're going to need a longer tie and a better briefcase." He glanced at Joanna. She wasn't smiling. She took a step forward. "This circus ends today," she hissed. "We gave you time. We offered compensation. You turned this into a performance." "No," I said calmly. "You did. When you shut me out of your father's funeral. When you pretended 50 years of friendship didn't mean anything. When you tried to erase the only person who truly stood by him." Her jaw clenched. "You're not family, Henry." "I was the only damn family he had left," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And then I reached into my coat pocket, not for a weapon, not for drama, but for Tom's letter, the real one, not the scan, not the video, the original. "I found this under his toolbox," I said. "Last week. Hidden in an envelope behind the pegboard. Dated, handwritten, and notarized. Turns out your dad wasn't as trusting as we thought." The lawyer paled. Joanna's face didn't move, but her eyes— oh, her eyes went wild. Margot stepped forward. "I filed a motion this morning, Your Honor," she said, looking directly at the sheriff's deputy, "with this document included. As of now, legal proceedings are suspended until review." Silence, then applause. Not the roaring stadium kind, but quiet, genuine, respectful. The kind of applause you give to truth finally breaking through. The news vans stayed until sundown. Neighbors brought casseroles like it was Thanksgiving. People took selfies with the porch sign that read, "Still Home," in bold, uneven paint. But by 6 p.m., it was just me. Me, the porch, the sunset, and a mug of decaf that tasted like cardboard and victory. That night, I didn't cry. Not out of pride, but because I'd done enough crying in silence. A week later, Joanna's lawyer withdrew the case. They claimed administrative exhaustion and mutual resolution. But everyone knew the truth. They lost. They didn't just lose a house. They lost the right to control the narrative. They lost the chance to rewrite history. And I got to stay. But more than that, I got to remind people that love, loyalty, and old friendships aren't just sentimental garbage. They matter. They damn well matter. The YouTube channel kept growing. Last Friend Standing became something bigger than me. People started sending in their own stories about forgotten fathers, erased friendships, loyal neighbors who were kicked out for speaking up. And every week, I sat on my porch and read them aloud. Some made me laugh. Some broke me in half. But they all reminded me that I wasn't alone. A month later, I walked down to the lake where Tom and I used to fish. I brought a folding chair, a cheap cigar, and his favorite hat, the one he wore sideways to annoy his wife. I sat there for hours, thinking about war, about love, about being left behind, and about the rare, sacred miracle of someone choosing to stand by you for no reason other than they want to. I lit the cigar, took a breath, and whispered, "You were right, Tom. Loyalty doesn't die.